Are you memorizing facts to study for an exam just to find yourself forgetting them after the exam is over? I know how it feels. You study hard but can't apply the knowledge and can't even discuss the topic to demonstrate that you've learned something useful. You're not wrong for being frustrated. Today I'm sharing how fractal learning can fix that. Imagine your brain as a symphony orchestra. Linear learning, which is a step-by-step sequential approach to learning via a fixed curriculum, is like playing a single instrument from beginning to end. But let's be real, who goes to an orchestra just to hear a single instrument? I remember struggling with studying history at school, trying to memorize all the chronological dates and events. I eventually passed the test, but couldn't explain why the events mattered and why we should care. Does that sound familiar to you? We think memorizing fact equal learning, but the truth is it's like building a house without foundations. It simply won't hold up. In my case, the fact didn't stick because they had no context. Going back to our analogy earlier, I mentioned that linear learning is like playing a single instrument from beginning to end. You hear one clear melody, but it's just isolated and lacks the full experience. Fractal learning is like listening to the entire orchestra, with all instrument playings together in harmony. Each instrument contributes its own sound, and their interplay creates a richer, more dynamic compositions. This is similar to how neurons operate in the brain. They don't work alone in sequence, but fire together in networks, processing information in parallel. For example, when a baby learns the word apple for the first time, they see its bright red color, feel its smooth, cool skin, taste its sweet and juicy flesh, and hear a caregiver say the word apple. Their brain doesn't process these sensory experiences one by one. Instead, it weaves all these sensory inputs together and processes all the information at different regions of the brain's neural networks at once. As a result, the baby doesn't just learn that an apple is red or that it tastes sweet. They grasp the entire idea of an apple as a multi-sensory object all at once. This network activities allows for the integration of new information with existing knowledge, creating a holistic understanding. If the brain tries to process everything linearly in isolation, it would be painfully slow and inefficient. Imagine trying to solve a puzzle by looking at one piece at a time without ever seeing how they connect. That's what linear processing would be like. It works for simple tasks, but for anything complex is a bottleneck. In reality, even simple tasks involve networks. For example, listening to me talking right now isn't just about recognizing one word after another in sequence. Your brain is also predicting what's come next, recalling related ideas, and processing the meaning all at once through its neural networks. Most of us was programmed to think learning means following a strict curriculum. But if that fills you with dread, maybe it's time to look for an alternative approach to learning. Let me introduce you to fractal learning, a three-step method that adapts to how your brain naturally works. It is a more holistic and interconnected approach to learning. Think of it like a neural symphony. Instead of isolated neural pathways or single instrument playing solo in the symphony analogy, you have an interconnected web of neural pathways contributing to a harmonious whole. Each time you revisit a concept or connect it to something new, you reinforcing synapses and creating new pathway, making the network more robust and adaptable. This is precisely how neurons work during learning. They form and strengthen connection through repeated activations. With fractal learning, your knowledge becomes a web of understanding where ideas are constantly linked and reinforced instead of a checklist of unrelated concepts. Fractal learning, which is emphasis on interconnectedness and revisiting concepts, align more closely with how neural networks function. When we learn in a fractal manner, we activating multiple neural pathways simultaneously, strengthening connection between different areas of knowledge. By constantly revisiting and connecting concepts, we essentially creating multiple pathways to access the same informations. That make it easier to recall information and connect ideas that might seem unrelated on the surface. When knowledge is interconnected, you're better equipped to approach problems from different angles. You can draw on a wider range of concepts and experiences, leading to a more creative and effective solutions. In my case, instead of following the strict history curriculum, which requires studying ancient civilization in a chronological order, I could choose to start with Greek mythology because it sparks my interest. I can then branch into Greek politics to understand how myth influence society before jumping to Roman mythology to compare, and then followed by exploring Roman engineering. This approach allows me to understand how historical events are interconnected and how they influence the human civilization as a whole. I choose my own adventure and get to decide what to explore next, making education feel more alive, engaging, personal, and meaningful. Mastering fractal learning is the key to connected knowledge. Here's a 3-step process I wish I had known sooner. Step 1. Find the core ideas. These are central ideas or structures that everything else related to the topics builds on, like the trunk of the tree. Step 2. Explore its parts. Identifying the core patterns of a topic in step 1, this is where we zoom in on the smaller parts that make up that pattern and explore each component at a deeper level, like examining a smaller piece of the fractal that mirrors the whole. In step 3, link it all back together. Finally, we step back and connect these details to the bigger picture. The magic happens when we see the whole. Are you ready to build your web of knowledge? Follow for tips or visit my blog to dive in. Also, if you want to deeper dive into how to implement the fractal learning framework, stay tuned for my next video.